Today's lesson is traveling in Taiwan. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're talking about traveling in Taiwan. Of course, you don't need to go overseas to see wonderful things. There are some great things overseas, like in Japan and Russia and Africa and places like that. But there are also lots of things to see here in good old Taiwan. We've got several people here going to different places. They're going to some places here in the north, but they're also going to some place down in Taidong, which we'll talk about. But we're only scratching the surface here. There, of course, are lots of other places to go check out in Taiwan as well.
That's right. Taiwan isn't very big, but there are so many things to do and so many things to see that you really do need some time if you're a tourist in Taiwan to see everything. A few days isn't enough. I think you need at least a few weeks if you want to go hiking and appreciate the natural scenery and also get a taste of the local culture, the old streets, and the food. It's really a very rich island, and a lot of people are realizing that now.
Right, and our conversations today involve some foreigners, I'm guessing, because they're talking in a way that makes it sound like they've never been to these places before or they don't know about them. So let's find out what they talk about here. We've got Amy and Dan going to Yangmingshan. Let's listen to the first conversation for today right now.
Traveling in Taiwan. 1. A visit to Yangmingshan. Dan and Amy are enjoying a visit to Yangmingshan.
I love the fresh air in Yangmingshan. It is great to get out of the city.
And it was so easy to get here. It only took a 20-minute bus ride from Shilin MRT station. I can't believe that we are still in Taipei City.
I know. Despite how close we are to Taipei City Center, I feel like we are on some far-off mountains.
I love how cool the climate is here.
Because of the high altitude, Yangmingshan stays cool all year round, even in the summer.
Wow, look at the flower clock. It is so beautiful.
大家好，第一部分我们来介绍名词 altitude， 它的意思是海拔。例如 The plane is flying at an altitude of 1,000 meters. 飞机正在海拔1000公尺的高度飞行。又或者说 Some people have difficulty breathing at altitudes over 2,500 meters. 有些人在海拔高于2500公尺的地方会呼吸困难。
So in the first conversation of today, which is titled A Visit to Yangmingshan, we have Dan and Amy who are enjoying a visit to Yangmingshan. And Amy says to Dan, I love the fresh air in Yangmingshan. It is great to get out of the city. So the two of them are in the mountains, and as usual there, the air is very clear and very crisp, and they're enjoying the fresh air. And she's saying to Dan that she really enjoys being out of the bustling city, Taipei.
And Yangmingshan, of course, is not one mountain, but it's a range of mountains north of Taipei. It's actually in the city limits of Taipei. And there are lots of things to see and do in Yangmingshan. And yes, indeed, she loves the air there in Yangmingshan. It's great to get out of the city. And Dan says, and it was so easy to get here. It only took a 20-minute bus ride from Shilin MRT station. That's one way to get to Yangmingshan. I'm lucky because I live in Wenshan in Taipei, and if I want to go to Yangmingshan on the weekend, all I have to do is hop on the 109 bus, and within an hour I will be there.
Yes, and Dan says, yeah, it's really convenient to get to Yangmingshan from where they are in Taipei. And he says, I can't believe that we are still in Taipei City. True, when you're in Yangmingshan, you feel like you're in the remote countryside, but you're actually still in Taipei City, and you're just a short bus ride away from Shilin MRT station.
Yes, it can be quite a quick ride. 20 minutes sounds kind of short to me, but, maybe on a good day without traffic, you could actually actually get up there that quickly. And Amy says, I know. I agree with what you said. We are still in Taipei City. The air is fresh, and I can't believe it. She says, despite how close we are to Taipei City Center, I feel like we are on some far-off mountains. So despite, which means to not be affected by something. You could also say in spite of. Despite how close we are to Taipei City Center, even though we're very close to the middle of the city, I can still feel like we are on some far-off mountains, maybe like in the Central Mountain Range or something like that. If something's far off, it's very remote, it's very far away, like the Central Mountain Range here in Taiwan. It's quite far off there. It does take quite some time to get there.
Right, so despite basically is used when you want to say that something happens, even though something else might have prevented it from happening. You could say, for instance, we arrived at the airport on time despite the heavy traffic.
Or I could say, despite the fact that John is a hard worker, he still got fired from his job for being irresponsible with a certain client. But in any case here, yes, despite, even though we are close to Taipei City Center, it still feels like we are in some far-off mountains somewhere. And Dan says, I love how cool the climate is here. Now, of course, we're in August now, and it's a very hot time of year. But still, if you go up to Yamingshan, it can be quite cool there. And the climate is the general weather of a certain area. And yes, indeed, if you go up to Yamingshan, it's generally cool all year round.
And Amy replies, because of the high altitude, Yamingshan stays cool all year round, even in the summer. So Amy explains to Dan why it's cool up in Yamingshan. It's because of the high altitude. Altitude means the height of a place or the height of something above sea level. So it's also equivalent to the distance of something from the surface of the sea to the top of that thing.
Right, so it has a high altitude there. Of course, if you try to walk up Yamingshan or ride your bicycle up there, it's going to take quite some time because it is quite a tall mountain. It's quite steep and it does have a high altitude. And as you know, the higher you go up, the colder it gets or the cooler it gets. And yes, indeed, because of that high altitude, Yamingshan is cool all year round, even in the summer. That's why a lot of people head to Yamingshan during the hot summer. They go there to cool off. Okay, and here's what Dan says. Wow, look at the flower clock. It is so beautiful. That is one of the many attractions of Yamingshan. You can go hiking up in Yamingshan. I believe there's a place to go look at calla lilies as well. And you can go look at cows on some grass fields. But here you can go look at a flower clock. And yes, indeed, lots of people go there to take pictures. And they go there to see cherry blossoms as well during certain times of the year. But still, that flower clock is quite beautiful. Have you seen that flower clock before, Helen?
I have seen the flower clock. I saw it a long time ago when I went up to Yamingshan. I haven't been there recently, but yeah, when I did see it that time, it was really beautiful.
Yeah, I think the last time we went there, we took the 109 bus to the parking lot there, and then we hiked down quite a ways in order to get to that flower clock. It can be a great way to enjoy a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Now we're going to go to Danshui Old Street. Let's listen to Eva and Zoe talking about that place.
2. A tour of Danshui Old Street. Eva and Zoe are taking a stroll around Danshui Old Street.
Danshui Old Street is so lively. It's absolutely one of the top tourist spots in northern Taiwan. Totally. This place has it all. Food, shopping, and even street performances. I love how we can watch the shows while we walk by the river. You can take the ferry over to Bali on the opposite bank. Let's head that way. There are cool general stores, snacks, and pastries. I've heard the most famous thing here is age. What is that? It's a local dish made with glass noodles and tofu. I've never had that before. I'll definitely give it a try. All right, save some room for fishball soup later.
第二部分我们看到副词 absolutely， 这个单字的意思是完全的、绝对的，或是确实、极其。例如 I'm absolutely certain that I can finish the project on time. 我绝对有把握可以准时完成这个专案。接下来我们看到单字 ferry， 它是名词，指的是渡轮或是渡船。例如 You can take the ferry to the island for free. 你可以免费搭乘渡轮去岛上。或是 Bruce took a ferry from France to England. Bruce 从法国搭渡轮到英国去。另外，这个字也可以当作动词使用，它的意思是用渡船运送或是乘渡轮渡过。例如 The boat ferried travelers across the river. 那艘船将旅客运送过河。又或者说 The tourists were ferried across the river to the town on the other side. 游客被载过河到对岸的城镇。下一个我们看到单字 opposite， 它是形容词，指的是对面的或是相反的。例如 Isabel lives on the opposite side of this park. Isabel 住在这个公园的对面。又或者说 I thought that the idea would help me save time, but it did the opposite. 我以为那个主意能帮我节省时间，但结果正好相反。再来我们看到名词 pastry， 指的是油酥糕点或是油酥点心。举例来说 Mary likes to eat a pastry and drink a cup of coffee for breakfast. Mary 喜欢吃油酥糕点，配一杯咖啡当早餐。接下来我们看到单字 definitely， 它是副词，指的是肯定的，当然也可以是明确的。例如 Kelly definitely needs to study harder if she wants to get good grades. 如果 Kelly 想得到好成绩，她当然得更努力读书。最后补充相关单字 definition， D-E-F-I-N-I-T-I-O-N definition， 它是名词，有定义、解释或是说明的意思。例如 If you don't know the definition of a word, you can look it up in the dictionary. 如果你不知道某个字的定义，你可以去查字典。再举一个例子 Patrick's definition of happiness is sharing a meal with family and good friends. Patrick 对幸福的定义就是与家人好友一起吃顿饭。
So in the second part of today's lesson, we have a tour of Danshui Old Street, and Eva and Zoe are taking a stroll around Danshui Old Street. So Eva says to Zoe, Danshui Old Street is so lively. It's absolutely one of the top tourist spots in northern Taiwan. So one thing to note about this area is that it's lively, which means it's full of energy and everything there seems to come alive. The people there are enthusiastic. It's very different from Yamingshan, which is peaceful and quiet. Here it's the opposite. It's lively.
Exactly. People go there for the excitement. And, of course, there are two different places you can walk in Danshui, either by the river or a block in from the river. But they refer to the one, I believe the one that's a block inward, right by where the Starbucks is. That's the Old Street. And, yes, indeed, they're taking a stroll around Danshui Old Street. And Eva says, Danshui Old Street is so lively, it's absolutely one of the top tourist spots in northern Taiwan. Yes, indeed, it's also very convenient to get to Danshui. All you got to do is hop on the red line and take it all the way to the end. And then you're right smack dab in the middle of Danshui. And you can enjoy the afternoon, go for a stroll, have some snacks, buy some souvenirs, you name it. It's absolutely one of the top tourist spots in northern Taiwan. So here, absolutely means 100% without a doubt.
And Zoe says, totally. This place has it all. Food, shopping, and even street performances. So Zoe says, totally in agreement with what Eva had just said. Totally here can be used as a response when you want to agree with somebody. You could say, for instance, to someone, did you like the movie? And I could respond, totally. I love the movie, which means I highly agree with the fact that the movie was great and I totally, absolutely enjoyed it.
Exactly. So totally, I agree 100%. It's got it all, food, shopping, and even some street performances. Indeed, you can see people people juggling or doing various acrobatics. And also, I think you can have your portrait drawn there. There are lots of street artists there as well. Now, moving on here, Eva says, I love how we can watch the shows while we walk by the river. Indeed, lots of performances go on next to the river there. I think last time I was there, there were some guys juggling fire sticks or something like that. That was a kind of performance that you can watch. And yes, indeed, it's quite interesting because they're right there by the river, so you can enjoy the cool river breeze there as you're watching these performances. It is very exciting, and you have some great picture opportunities.
Yes, so Eva enjoys the fact that they can watch the shows while walking by the river, and Zoe says you can take the ferry over to Bali on the opposite bank. So they're walking by the river, and Zoe points out that you can take the ferry. There are ferries over there, and a ferry is a boat that makes short trips between 2 points. And they can take the ferry from where they are over to Bali, which is on the opposite bank. So opposite refers to a place that is across from where you are. And bank here refers to the higher part of the side of a river.
Right, you could say the opposite side of the street, for example, or across the street. Opposite could also mean the other form of something, like what's the opposite of black? It's white, tall, short, fat, skinny, etc. Those are opposites. But in this particular case, it's the other side of the river across from Danshui. There are cool general stores, snacks, and pastries. So those are some of the attractions that Bali features there. General stores that sell all sorts of things. You can get some souvenirs that way. You can have some snacks, and you can have some pastries, which usually are items that are baked in ovens, like rolls and things like that.
Right, so pastries are generally made by mixing flour and butter or some other kind of fat and water. So once you have that, you have the dough. That's the pastry. And pastry also refers to the things that result from the pastry, the dough that you use to make other things. So a Danish is a type of pastry. Donuts can be considered a type of pastry as well. So pastry actually has 2 different meanings. And Eva responds, I've heard the most famous thing here is age. What is that?
Age, yeah, I'm thinking of one particular restaurant that is kind of near where the ferry departs for Bali. And age, of course, is a very popular dish there in Danshui, along with other things like fish balls, which we'll mention here in a few seconds here. But yeah, what is age? That sounds kind of strange. Zoe says, well, it's a local dish made with glass noodles and tofu. Glass noodles, of course, are noodles that are transparent. You can see through them, so therefore we call them glass noodles.
Yes, I believe they're usually made with mung beans instead of flour. So that's what glass noodles are. And Eva says, I've never had that before. I'll definitely give it a try. So Eva has never had age, but she's curious about it. So she really wants to taste it, which is why she says, I'll definitely give it a try. Definitely means without a doubt. It's used for emphasis. It means that she's not doubtful about whether she wants to try it or not. She's definitely going to try it.
Yes, indeed. It is quite tasty. I've had age many times. And gee, I'm kind of inspired now to head out to Danshui, maybe after our recording session today, Helen, and have myself an age, along with some of that ice cream they serve that's like 2 feet tall and other things like that. And yes, indeed, we do have some absolute words here. I'll definitely give it a try. Totally, absolutely, 100%. We're going to try all these things that are offered in Danshui. And Zoe says, all right, save some room for fish ball soup later. That, again, is also another local specialty in Danshui. Have you had that fish ball soup before, Helen?
Not that I recall. No. I have had age, and it was really yummy. I liked it a lot, but I don't think I had fishball soup ever in Danshui.
Yeah, I don't think I've had it either. I'm not much of a big fan of seafood, but I have had some local treats there in Danshui, some cakes that were made from taro, and also something that was made from durian, which I think a lot of people aren't really sure about. Some people like it, some people don't, but there is one shop there that sells snacks made from durian, which I actually enjoy quite a bit. And also when I go to Danshui, If I've lost my wallet or my old wallet is worn out, I go to the many stores there that sell wallets and other leather items.
Yes, so it's quite nice to spend a day in Danshui if you're looking for something that's lively, if you want a lot of crowds and people and things that you can see. It's a great place to go.
It certainly is, and we mentioned, of course, in today's lesson a couple places up north here, Yamingshan and Danshui. In our next lesson, we'll mention the Botanical Garden in Taipei, but then we'll travel all the way down to Taidong, so please join us then. Right now, we're going to take a time out and listen to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第一部分的对话里面， Dan 和 Amy 正在享受阳明山之旅。那么 Amy 就说， Despite how close we are to Taipei city center, I feel like we are on some far-off mountains. 尽管我们离台北市中心这么近，我感觉我们好像在某个遥远的山区。好，那么 far off 是形容遥远的、偏僻的。那这边我们要介绍的是 feel like 的用法。feel like 是表达感觉像是……那么之后可以接子句或名词。那当我们用 somebody feel like 加子句，可以表达某人觉得像怎么样，感觉好像怎么样。例如 Sometimes she feels like nobody cares about her. 有时候她觉得好像没有人关心她。好，那如果我们现在是用 feel like 加名词的话，则要注意主词是人还是事物哦。当主词是人的话， somebody feel like 加名词是表达某人感觉像怎么样怎么样，像 I feel like a fool， 我觉得自己像个傻瓜。好，可是如果主词是物品的话， something feel like 加名词则是表达某物品摸起来像什么，像 The cookies feel like stones， 这些饼干摸起来感觉像石头。好，再来补充一下，片语 feel like 还可以表达想要的意思，那么后面是接名词或动名词，而这个用法的主词通常是人，用来表达某人想要某物或是想要做某事。看两个例句哦。We feel like a walk， 就是我们想要散步。Do you feel like going to a movie？ 你想看电影吗？再看到课文第二部分的对话里， Eva 和 Zoe 正在淡水老街散步，那他们就有聊到阿给。 Zoe 向 Eva 解释说，阿给是一道用冬粉和豆腐做成的在地美食。他说 It's a local dish made with glass noodles and tofu。 好，句子里面的 made 前方是省略了 which is。 那当我们用 A be made with B， 就是表达 A 由 B 制成，用来说明 A 所含的原料成分。那这个句型呢，并没有强调制作过程，通常只是在说明这个食材原料是什么。好，举例来说， The sauce is made with soy sauce and vinegar。 这个酱汁是由这个酱油和醋制成的。好，那我们也补充两个可以表达由什么什么制成的用法。第一个我们可以用 be made of， 它是用来说明构成的材质原料，你从成品外观看得出它的制作原料。像 Lots of toys are made of plastic， 许多玩具是塑胶制的。第二个补充的是 be made from， 它是用来说明产品的来源，你从成品外观看不出原料，或者是说从制作原料到成品它的本质已经改变了。像 cheese is made from milk， 起司是由奶类制成的。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Absolutely. She was absolutely certain that she left the keys on the kitchen counter. Ferry. We took the ferry across the river to reach the other shore. Opposite. The restaurant and the bank are on opposite sides of the street. Pastry. Henry made some delicious pastries that he shared with us for breakfast. Definitely. I'll definitely be sure to call you this weekend.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.